What's up, guys? Welcome back to RC4wd. So I'm back from Beat the Creek in Kentucky and just going through the rigs. Had a few little hiccups. So a little bit more challenging than what I'm used to. Ultimate Scale Truck Expo is geared more towards scale. It's not a crawler course. There's no crawler trails by any means. It's definitely a scale world. So going to Beat the Creek, it's a little bit more crawler oriented. And yeah, put my rigs through their paces. So had a little issue. If you watched that video, you saw red. Did the hill climb flawlessly. I didn't catch that on film, but the descent was not so good. Me and Jeremy were going down, and as soon as I let off the throttle, a drag brake caught and truck rolled end over end. Body stayed at the top, and I snapped the front suspension or front steering link off of one knuckle on the front axle. And then Jeremy pushed the body down for me because there was no way either of us were going to climb up there and get it. So luckily no damage to the body, just a little bit of dirt, nothing big. But I already fixed the front. I wasn't going to film any of this, but I'm going to make some more changes on the 4Runner, so I figured I'd go ahead and catch you up to speed. Took everything apart, swapped the knuckles around. On the Yoda 2 axle, the knuckles are the same from side to side. It has extensions on both sides. So you can see this one maybe right here. Where is it? Back there. Maybe you can't see it. I snapped that off. It was still attached to the tie rod and the steering drag link. And yeah, just took it apart. I needed to take it apart anyway and clean it up, get some of the shock oil off. And I greased the joints and pulled the shafts out and greased them up a little bit too. And put it all back together. So everything's good. This gold didn't cost a dime to fix. And while I was doing that, I noticed my third link here, just a 3-link with a panhard, and the third link was loose up here. It had rattled loose. So I went and did a full nut and bolt check. All my rear suspension or rear cross members were loose. They all have scale bolts, so I went through and Loctited everything that was coming apart, and also changed this and lengthened it by about 4 millimeters. Got my front drive shaft angle a little bit better. It's more on par with how the rear is. And yeah, other than that, I was really disappointed because this truck was doing well. And I was really excited because I just swapped those shocks on before Beat the Creek. Those are just stock SCX-10 2 shocks, I think. Nothing fancy. But got it all back together, and of course, always be sure to Loctite these knuckle screws. There's a little collar in there that keeps them from locking the knuckle from moving. So you just crank them down and make sure they got a lot of Loctite on them. First thing you notice, 4Runner has no top. And it's because it fell on its roof, and I had that rack, and yeah, we broke the top in several places, broke the mounting bolts out of the rear, the little mounts, and yeah, luckily didn't lose any parts, but took a pretty good little fall down the slide at the barn, and the first slide outside, not even any of the serious stuff, so it was too heavy for that. That barn, you end up climbing up on that chicken wire, and it throws your perception off because you're looking through all these layers of chicken wire, and you may be driving along and somebody drives underneath you, and yeah, this was not the rig for the barn. So just because it was so top heavy, so you're up there and some of that was getting a little off kilter, and this thing just starts leaning because the hard top, all the scale stuff. It's a heavy body, plus I've got these heavy bumpers, so I bowed out about halfway through the barn on that after I'd already rolled it off. So I think we're just going to run it topless now. We're going to see if the reduced weight affects anything. I don't have any changes planned for the suspension. This was a used chassis I bought. All of the shock eyelets are loose. There's those scale shocks. It's like the first generation scale shocks that had the little brass piece pressed in, and they are all unpressed. Something I do on all my Trailfinders usually. You can see where the servo horn is and where the pumpkin is, so they're destined for contact. I've also spaced this drag link up off of the knuckle. I think I did. Can't see. May have to space that up a little bit because it is contacting the leaf spring a little bit under articulation there. But we're not getting full droop because the servo is hitting this. So what I like to do is just throw some 4, 5, 6 mil spacers underneath the servo mount, pull the servo up into the truck more, and that allows us to have more clearance on the front end. And that also goes hand in hand with the Jalon 2 front hoops, because that allows the stock shock to have full range of motion. You get full droop, So then you need to move the servo up in conjunction with that to give you the proper amount of clearance, because right now it'll go further that side than it will this. It kind of teeter-totters on that, so we need to get that away from the servo. And I think I'm going to throw a spacer on there real quick, and then I'll show you what it looks like after. Beat the creek. I invested heavily in K&K spacers, so I've got a lot of assortment of spacers. I've got them labeled, split up by color. I think I'm going to go with 3 mil. I'm just going to use silver on this because it matches the reef stuff. We get 3 of these or 4 of these out. 3 mil. Hopefully the screws that I have are long enough and I don't have to change them. We'll have to see. And I probably am going to go ahead and throw some Loctite on that. Then we're just going to put spacers under there to bring the servo up. So it's bringing the servo arm up and everything up away from the axle, so it has a little bit more room to play down there. Alright, got that moved up. It could use to move up a little more, but I'm not going to track down hardware for that right now. We've gained about 4 millimeters of droop in the front, which is really all we're going to get with that body anyway. But that's still bottoming out the servo arm on the diff. But I didn't have to space the drag link because moving the servo up pulled it away from the leaf spring. But I do need to address some of these shock eyelets. They're toast. The other one's good on that side, but this one is completely separated. I did also work on a little wire management. This side was hanging up a little bit. This has that A&M Garage shackle reverse kit, and it's acting a little funny back here. It was getting caught up in the motor wires, and it was preventing that side from actually moving. So I think I got that worked out, just kind of cleaned things up a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to get my shock bin out and start looking at swapping out eyelets on the shocks. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the bottom eyelets for these RC4 drive shocks, but I do have lots of spare tops. I've robbed all the bottoms for rod ends and other things. So yeah, this is what we're looking at here. I've got one, it's still got one of the brass rings in it. The other one came out, it just lets the eyelet of the ball joint just fall right out. So got some newer ones here. I'm going to put it back together. Definitely need to do the rears. Oh no, those are the bottoms. They've got them upside down. So I don't know. We'll see what we can do. At least get the fronts replaced, and hopefully that tightens up a little bit of our slop in the front end. Alright, got the rear shock caps swapped out. Of course they're on upside down. It does seem like it keeps them from leaking. Feels a lot better. The shock ends on this at the top are completely worn out. They're toast. They need some spacers, so I'm going to have to try to track down some of those and put some spacers in there. These rear ones, you can see how bent that is. They were jacked up. Being on the bottom, they've taken a beating. Not even perfectly round anymore, coming apart. This one's about to fall apart. It's in there a little bit. So definitely, that seems to smooth stuff up a little bit. I'm going to do some more digging and see if I have any more of the ends of any kind we can swap on there. May have to use some off another kind of shock. These top ones are pretty bad, and they're bolted straight to the cross member, so the shocks are angling forward, which when you compress is causing the bodies to hit the axle, and it's just not good all around. So we need to do something with that. Bad news, I broke one of my CC hand fuel tank lids off. That'll be irreplaceable. But the bumper and stuff stayed on just fine. It didn't get bent up. But you can see just how bad these are. They're just wallowing around in there, completely junk. And not sure. Well, it doesn't look like I'll be able to move them to another mount. I like them inward a little bit, but this seems soft enough. These are pretty heavily greased. I had to pull the receiver box up out of the way a little bit. So I'm going to try to find something here to swap it. I had some sacrificial Delon 2 shocks. Got the shocks perfectly perpendicular now. Had some probably 8 mil spacers in there. Went with some scale hardware and Loctite. Got everywhere. So got those all tightened up now. So only slop left is our ends on our front, and I don't have anything else to do that. I only had 2 of these. These were so far gone they had to be changed. So get everything back together. Put the bumper back on and the battery box or receiver box in, and we'll give it a flex test. So it's tightened it up quite a bit, and that was part of the reason I didn't trust it, because it had a little too much flop side to side. So I think now it'd probably be fine if we put a hard top back on it, but like I said, we don't have a hard top that's in good shape anymore, so that's out of the question. So I think that's going to work though. Again, those bottom ones are still pretty worn out. None of these have a whole lot of precision to them, but it's good enough. So only other rig I have that failed me, the C2X did perfectly. Only issue I had is I lost a blinker off the grill. And yeah, the RC Model X truck. We're going to look at that. I'm having some electronics issues. The only thing left to do on this is sort out some more scale stuff and do the inside now that's exposed. I've got a cooler and a couple little things in there, but nothing in the bed big, so we'll piddle around with that and see what else we can come up with. But I'm digging it. I'm really curious to see how it does without the top, without the extra weight. Alright, so the RC Model X truck, I don't know what it's doing. It'll work for a second, and then it'll cut off. I thought maybe smaller battery, and it cut off already. Still got steering, but I keep losing throttle. So I don't know. This is an older, turn this noisy thing off. Everything on it's old. Got this from my buddy Ray a while back, and it's got an old Savox that he waterproofed. It's got an older Holmes Hobby something on it, and it's got a really old Spectrum receiver, so I may swap that out. I've got a little bit newer unit here that I've taken off of something else. See if maybe that'll do the trick. If not, then I'm thinking it's just another 1060 that's gone bad. We'll find out. I don't know. It's still doing it. I'm getting lights on the ESC. Reverse blinks. Forward stays on. So I don't know what the deal is, but probably just going to need... This truck really needs a full overhaul. It's such a good chassis, and I hate that it's got such crappy stuff on it. I dropped it off the table there a minute ago. It took off on me, and one of the rod ends on the front four-link popped off. So she needs some love. It's been a hot minute. When I got this from Ray, it was in pretty disarray. He'd taken it all apart and hadn't done much with it in a while. So I just got to piece it together with what I had. So it may be time to give this truck an overhaul. So I don't know. I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to put it on a 2-cell. I've got it on a 3-cell, a smaller one. We'll see if maybe it stays on longer. Nothing at all now, so thinking this may be done. Everything's in the right settings. So I don't know. But getting nothing but servo. Oh well. Yeah, I think this truck needs to sit out the next few games. We'll get it back on the road eventually. We'll wrap this video up here, guys. Appreciate y'all watching. A little Trailfinder tech and a little bit of repair. But yeah, get out there and have some fun. Keep it scale, and I will see y'all next time.